This
Hey,
is
Corey.
Hey Minnie,
Good morning.
welcome to my studio.
Thank you. Thank you. So, tell us about it.
Yeah, I want to show you what I have going on here. How
You're really formally dressed up for this. I'm
well, I was
impressed.
told I have my actual like I have like a onesie on like this jumpsuit thing that I do my art in. It gets really messy, but it's really
Okay.
cold in the studio today, so
Oh, okay.
that's schmata and we'll be fine.
Oh,
So, but I do my work is really messy, and that's kind of one of the things I wanted to share with you. It's
yeah.
messy literally, and it's also just kind of processually messy. It's very improvisational. I kind
Okay.
of work with motifs and then improvise around those motifs. And there's a lot of powdered pigments involved. So I think for
Fun.
any kids watching at home, don't do as I do, and you should probably rest up when working, which I do all the time. And just right now for this recording, I'm not.
Okay.
So I just did a live demo the other day and created this piece.
Oh, wow. Oh,
You
that's beautiful.
see
I
how
love the shine on it. So this has wax. This has a wax coating
it
on
has
it.
wax on it and it's powdered pigments. And I'm going to basically
Okay.
create a similar motif
Okay.
today.
Okay, great. Let's
Oh,
do
how
that.
motif and improv and all of that
Yeah,
works. Oh,
let's
she
do it.
smells me. It smells so good. And
Okay.
I laid out,
I'm looking at your table now, so
right.
that's
So I just laid out here a montage of the kind of stuff that you might find lying around my studio. These are kind of common tools. I make my own stencils for most of the work. So if you're
okay.
familiar with my stuff, there's often these little jumping lines everywhere. And
Yeah.
I made this stencil for those.
Okay. So it's
So
cut out of paper, basically.
cut out of watercolor paper.
Okay. Okay.
Hanson watercolor paper, and I have boxes and boxes of stencils. So
Okay.
here's a stencil we'll be using today. I'll definitely be using this today to make that wavy mark at the bottom.
Okay. Yeah.
So I created
Oh, yeah.
this,
Yes.
brought some pigments on with that. And
Yeah.
here are the pigments. I mix my pigments in little bottles.
Okay.
Pigments, sorry, these are powdered pigments that I buy as powdered, or
Yep.
sometimes I buy, I have a lot of pastels.
Yeah. And I
My,
guess the way you use pigments is slightly different from the way I use them. So I'm guessing you go through a lot.
I go through
Yeah.
a lot.
I use it very spare. Like mine, I used very sparingly. I'm guessing yours is just all over.
Whatever word is the opposite of sparingly is how I'm using it. It's in the air. They're all over my house. And I rarely draw directly with pastels, but rather I grind them up using
Oh, okay.
various rasps.
That's what the little cheese grater is over
That's
there.
the cheese grater. I think we'll call it a rasp.
Okay.
And cheese grater makes me hungry. So yes, with it, I've never tried a cheese grater. That's a great idea. So because the tower ones would be easier than this. So I
Yeah.
use these puppies here to grind it up and make powder from those. But sometimes I'll draw directly, and then
Okay.
I have lots of just boxes and boxes of pastels of all kinds. Oh, and then I use edges of things. Well, I'll be using this today to
Yeah.
make a crinkled edge. And then I have a lot of circles in my work, and those are stencils that I've created this way. I'm
Okay.
rubbing powdered pigments through these to make the holes, to make the the circles. And what's nifty is there's media on the other side of the stencil. And so when I push media through here, you get a little bit off of here, like a
So
print.
it picks up. Yeah.
Yeah, you wind up getting like two circles. It's really beautiful. Here's one of my favorite stencils that's actually lasted over a year,
Oh,
although
wow.
it's falling apart. But it's corrugated cardboard that I've cut a bunch of circles in.
Yeah.
If I use this side down, you get these corrugated lines that transfer to the paper plus the circles.
Yeah.
Lots of accidents and just beautiful marks that occur.
Yes.
And then I often select or curate a bunch of palette for a series of work, and I made these little paper boxes, and I'll hold all that palette in there, so I don't have to search for it every time. And then I use these little blenders,
Yep.
such good times. And then I like to use
What is
clay.
that?
What's that?
What is that?
It's clay. This is, I forgot what it's
Oh,
called.
it's clay. Okay. Could
And I'll
could
take
you
this.
move it forward a bit? You're not exactly under the camera. Yep, that's it. Yep, now I can see
A
it.
piece
That's
of
fantastic.
clay that
Yeah.
never dries, and it's covered in pigment. And so I will be rolling that onto the paper to make some marks with that.
Oh, okay.
Beautiful marks. I'll show you. I'll actually start with that. And then every session starts with some kind, like as you see, even how I have the stuff laid out, there's always some kind of mise en place going on where I can just step into the studio and get started. But in order to get into that state of consciousness that allows improvisation, you need some kind of ritual divide between just hanging out in the kitchen with the kid doing math homework and
Yeah.
stepping into the studio and trying to enter a space where I can improvise with shape, form, and color to depict my subconscious. So having a mise en place, having it all set up really helps.
Yeah.
And I listen to a lot of music while I work, and I light incense every time.
Yeah, I do incense too, and music.
Knocks on the incense. Good. Gotta have it. This is this patchouli rope incense that I have. It's amazing. So I'll get that there. And then I get the paper out. This is Arch's cover, this paper, which is beautiful. Look how it eats the light. It's so nice. And I tape it off every time to get that clean edge between the work and the rest of the world, really. I've tried working on paper to the edges, and it's super frustrating. The finished piece doesn't look right to me. It doesn't, it's just spilling out into the world. I need some kind of silence and a difference that makes a difference. It's an important paratext. But as soon as I get the paper, I'm going to want to mark it because the white paper makes me nervous.
Yeah.
So you understand, right? Like
Yeah, totally.
like, okay, so any artist block is gone because I'm not worried about sullying this paper. And I'm not even sure what pigments are on this right now. It looks like there's a lot of blue in my life these days. So there, so we've got some sky forms. I like all the noise in my work because, you know, even though it's abstract, I feel like it's realism. Because everywhere you go, this looks like clouds. It looks like, I look at a lot of things under microscopes, unicellular organisms. No matter where you're looking, there's just a cloudy mess, drifting things everywhere all the time. Looking in the sky, looking at microscopic animals. It's always the same. So I start every piece. Can you see that in the camera?
Yeah. Yep.
So I mark up the paper somehow, like I just did. And then I use this edge of an Omaha Steaks box that my stepmother sent me. And I'm always hunting for templates and pieces that I can use and shapes. And this particular piece of cardboard has this amazing scalloped edge, ridged edge. And I love these frequency that ridges appear in different corrugated cardboards. And I create these lines, which in my mind are kind of, sometimes I think of them as contrails, like the airplanes above my house.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Where I first got the inspiration, because I live out in the country sky out here, and there's always very high airplanes weaving these lines. But then it also kind of looks like cytoskeleton in a cell. Can you see what's going on?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And then I have a alphabet, basically, a vocabulary of marks that I use in every piece. So that's part of the motif and improvisation. But you know, just with 26 letters in an alphabet, you can make an infinite number of words.
Yes, absolutely.
So, yeah, finite elements with a syntax gives you infinite possibilities.
And I think so much of the creative process is finding your language, isn't it? I mean, that's what
I think I didn't even really have an art practice till I realized I had.
Yeah.
I always had a lot to say, if you will. Like I had things I wanted to express, but I was illiterate artistically until I had my own alphabet. And so I've just put some dots in a certain pattern. The pattern's always 1, 2, 3, space 1. And if you want to, you can show up at Waterstone Gallery, where my King of No Country show is up right now. But if you look at every piece,
we have Corey's show up at the gallery, and it's up till the 2nd. Am I correct, Corey?
Yeah.
The 2nd of May, and we're open this month, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, from 11 to 5:30. Am I correct? I haven't been in, so but Corey's popping in and out most weekends. So if you want to catch him, then drop by on the weekend, or you can just shoot us a message, and we will make sure that the man is present to answer your question.
Yeah, you could smell it here right now. The incense is going, and then over here I have beeswax and damar resin melting in a convection.
Oh, yes, that smell is gorgeous.
Convection surface, cast iron pan, wax and resin.
Yes.
And Ake brush. We'll come back to that soon, but the smell is amazing.
Yeah.
So I've made the marks, and if you go into the gallery and look at my work, you can kind of play Where's Waldo and find all these similar marks in all of my work. There's little circles, there's triple hatches, there's this water symbol, I tend to do them all in 3s, 6s, or 9s.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So it's all up there now. And I call it up because it is place. It is landscapey. I kind of like Joan Mitchell's idea that she keeps the landscapes in her head,
Yeah.
and she expresses them how they feel later, and that's kind of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So it is landscapey, but sometimes I also feel like we're looking down at a microscope. So, like I said, I wanted to reproduce that image I made the other day, and this is a common practice. You can see it on my table. I often do a sketch
Okay.
of what I'm going to do on the paper down here, just because every time I'm done doing something, especially when it's nighttime and I'm listening to music and I'm dancing around and having a good time, when I get to this point, I might forget what I was doing, and there's endless possibilities of what I can do next year.
Yeah.
An
Yeah.
infinite number of choices at every flexion point, but I've limited that with a basic sketch. So
I was just actually just going to ask you whether you start with the plan or a sketch, or you just kind of
yeah, I
go
start with a
and see
basic
where it's going.
concept.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I really kind of get paralyzed at each
Yeah.
inflection.
Yeah.
Where do I go from here? It's kind of like you're
Too much
playing.
choice.
Yeah, it's like improvising inside a song. So there's a song structure, but I'm going to improvise inside of that, which is why I like to
Yeah.
the Grateful Dead so much when I work.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm mistaken, but you actually have a background in music. Am I right?
I do. I am a musician, or was a musician. I am.
So
And
how did you
hmm,
progress, or how did that transition happen from
well,
music to visual art? Or
I don't really know. I went through a lot of life-changing stuff a couple of years ago, and while that was happening, I was trying to turn to music to express and work through that, but it wasn't really happening. And at the same time, I discovered the practice of asemic writing, sort of nonsense writing.
Mhm.
I started doing that and becoming obsessed with that. Then I wanted to add color. Then I wanted to add wax, and then it matured into an art process right under my nose without me really realizing that's what was happening. And that seems to have more wattage than my musical practice ever did. Even though I've been playing music since I was 10,
Wow.
it just seems
Okay.
like the visual art thing was
Yeah.
always, whereas right now, a clearer channel. That's all I can say.
Mhm.
But I've learned so much from music that it's all kind of in here.
Yeah, I think music and painting is closer in spirit and connection than we realize. I find um, that there is a different quality that comes into the work when you have music on.
Yeah, true. It,
Or
it,
yeah,
it leaks in there.
yeah.
I often work so fast and just in such a state of mind that I don't remember making the piece per se, but I can look at the piece and often remember what I was listening to.
Yeah. And that's just beautiful texture that you've suddenly got with that brush in there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was some of this blue I've mixed up in my tube, in my jar.
Is that an indigo blue or
It is. I started out with a Prussian blue
okay.
and then worked it, and now I've just kind of put it on the template, and I've
Yeah.
brushed it with a big house brush. Which I got. It's a thing about art making and art supplies. I've realized is that every art supply I use is because I got it to do something else and failed at that thing. But then I have it for something else. Like I got this for some other project, carpentry. I was like, I can't do this. I kept the brush, and then 2 months later, I'm like, I wish I had a big. I do have a big brush. That's not true of everything I have. It's all
Yeah.
from failing at other things. So it's like my art's like a junkyard. So there's our bottom,
Yeah.
and I was really sure to be super wabi-sabi about how it went on. It's really not about consistency or I just want it to be what it's going to be. But you can see, Minnie, how the powdered pigments are so fine that they really grabbed that
Yeah.
paper.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful. It's beautiful like this, but wait till we put some wax on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's really beautiful. Now let's run back to my box of templates. I know because of my sketch that I want to do a big owl. They call these big circles owls.
Why are they called owls?
And I don't know. When I first did them, I started calling them owls. I think it has something to do with death and birds of prey and cycle of life.
Okay.
I called them suns or moons. This wasn't the rationality, but it makes sense to me in retrospect. If I called them suns and moons, it would immediately render this a landscape or something.
Yes, of course.
I
Yes.
don't want that. I don't want to close that gap for anybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's not always obvious that that's what it is, and that's actually not what it is. It's a circle. It's an owl, and there are circles everywhere. So here I've put down a big circle. I've decided where to go. The owl's gonna be up in this corner because the cytoskeleton is over here. See, now we're talking owls and cytoskeletons, and I'm very happy with that kind of improvising with reality. I'm gonna put brushy poo away. And then I'm going to use this template on top of this template. Ooh, it looks like the owl slipped off the edge. I'm gonna keep that. And I've already pre-chosen my colors, so I
Yeah.
don't have to spend too much time grooving on that. I kind of tend to do that on when I'm not really in the mood to make art, but I want to hang in the studio. I'll come in here and curate palettes and
Color combination.
make color combinations, and then cut out all these stencils. That's good daytime activity. Like Saturday afternoon, I'm gonna go in the studio and whip out some stencils.
And
On
these are the dry pastels you're using, not
these are
oil.
dry pastels I'm using.
Okay. And are there brands that you prefer, or
I really dig Unison color, but they're hard to get now.
which ones?
Unison color.
Okay.
But it turns out, I mean, I used Rembrandt last night and it was mind blowing. So I don't really care. It turns out at the end of the day that I like going to, I've Been Framed, which is an art store here in Portland.
Oh yes, I love that place.
You
It's
know
always fun.
and they sell used art supplies.
Yeah.
Get boxes or bags sometimes of used pastels. I'm going to grind a lot of them up anyway. So it's cool. Wow, this is a strange palette I chose. I like it. I'm using this little blender to get it into the paper.
And so then when you put the wax on top of it, that kind of acts as a fixative, or do you spray your work and then
Both. I think when I put the wax on, it definitely fixes everything for real. It really makes it paint officially.
Yeah.
Then it's powdered pigment with a liquid medium, and so it officially becomes paint. But in the process of putting the wax on, I can get brush drag and all kinds of pigments moving around, which I like. But if I don't want it to move around a lot, I'll spray it with a fixative.
So it's not strictly encaustic, right? I
I don't
mean,
think it's officially encaustic at all.
yeah.
Not encaustic painting. I use encaustic medium
Medium, yeah,
to
yeah.
put over it. But once the encaustic medium hits the powdered pigments, it is, I guess, encaustic paint at that point.
Yeah.
But the mark making isn't painting. I call it stencil art maybe, or backwards painting, or painting backwards through time. So now I'm taking both of those things. That is a groovy palette.
Yeah.
I'm glad I trusted myself. Nice. So now we have that boy up there. I often like to do a color at the top, inspired by the Japanese printmaking, the Japanese wood blocks. Always the sky in those is
Yes.
not something I'm capable of replicating, but I'm at least going to borrow the idea of having a bar of color at the top. And for that, I'll use some powdered pigment. Again, I just took the pastels, drew it on the tape. So I made a collection of powder, and I'm going to take my smaller brush.
And push it down. Okay.
And one of the things you learn through repeated failure is what colors go well together.
Oh, yeah.
And I really know that I dig this blue and this goldish brown vibe a lot. I'm sure there's a theory behind that makes sense of it. Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's lovely.
That? That's pretty groovy.
It's so, I mean, looking at your work in the gallery, I'm constantly, every time I come back to it, I find something that I haven't seen before. And I'm constantly exploring. It is like this new landscape every time that you're exploring, or this new world. But now seeing you do it, it's almost like I'm learning a foreign language.
Right, kind of is.
And I'm learning your landscape, so to speak, and
how
to
becoming
build
literate.
up. Yeah. And I think I can't wait to get in this weekend and have a look at everything now. And I know I'm going to look at it with a different lens. Yeah.
That's cool. And I try to make them, I don't try to, it just turns out that they're legible close up, because
Yeah.
there's all the little marks and things to look at and the wabi-sabi, but then they're also legible standing back.
It reads from a distance as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
So it's kind of a dual experience. It's 2-in-1, Minnie. You think you're buying one piece of art.
It's a lot more than two.
Really buying two. That's cool. Okay, look at that. So now I'll put my favorite stencil in there, the circles.
Hmm.
We even got some of the stripes of the pigment picking up from the other side of it. And
They almost look like constellations now. Yeah.
yeah, right? They look kind of like constellations, but it also looks a lot like when you look at stentors and other unicellular organisms under the microscope, it kind of looks like moss. I saw this thing where they grew moss in space in a space station, and it grew in a spiral form.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, like moss wants to be a
Is that because of the lack of gravity or?
oh yeah, or it's like
Okay.
its will is to be a spiral without gravity getting in the way.
That's interesting.
Mhm. Those are the kind of things I'm thinking about. So I feel like I'm done mark making. It's a little less marks than usual, but I like the openness right here. I will add one thing, a little piece of writing, a little asemic spell. There. Just a little dance of language.
And with the writing, is it like it's your own script, your own language? So
Yeah.
do
Well,
you
no,
have
yes and no.
something very precise in your mind that you're
I'm thinking,
okay.
just thinking about you and how much fun this was. So I wrote about that and the joy of doing this, but there weren't really words. I was just feeling the vibe and then using the same gestures that one would sign one's name with.
Yes.
Sign your name in the air. You see how fluid and possible that is. And take that same fluidity and just kind of use alphabetic gestures while emoting.
Yeah.
And you get something that's like writing, but it's not. And the viewer gets to read it like writing, but it's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And something's communicated, maybe, if I'm lucky, or
Yeah.
nothing's communicated, it just looks like a mess. But either way, I tried. So
Now
this out here.
now the fun.
Now it's time to wax. So I've got the wax there in this beautiful Hake brush, which is burnt. I like using this burnt brush because little pieces of brush fall off and get in the work.
Mhm.
And the oil, actually, I threw frankincense and myrrh resin into it, which gives it a little bit of a smell. But the
Yes.
resin didn't totally break down, so it gives little crystals in there too, as we'll see. I'm not going to fix this first. There might be some brush drag. So I've got to anticipate that and be like, which way are these things falling? I feel like all my work is capturing an explosion that just happened. There's motion in here, and we just caught it. So I feel like these things are maybe flying down. So if we get brush drag, I'm going to
Oh, wow.
fix that. Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Now, beautiful. So now the color of everything, it's kind of like, look, you see all the little frankincense and myrrh, and then
Yeah.
also this wax is unfiltered. So I get it from an apiary, and they don't filter the wax, so there's little pieces of insect in there too, and hive. So there's like insect bodies and hive and pieces of brush, and little nuggets of frankincense and myrrh.
And
It's
that's
really
the heat
bad.
gun that you're using now?
It's the heat gun,
Okay.
and it does three things for me maybe. One is it fuses the wax to the paper,
Mm-hmm.
which needs to happen. And the second thing is it actually moves pigment around a little bit,
Okay, yeah. And
which is,
suddenly everything is so intense, the color,
yeah, the
with
color's
the heat
amazing.
gun on it. It's like the colors have just gotten darker by a few degrees.
Yeah, it's like putting water on a rock at the beach.
Hmm.
Find a stone and you can basically see some stripes in it, some beauty hiding in there. But then you wet it down and it all shines. And this kind of locks in that shine forever. What was the third thing? I said the heat gun gives me three things. It fuses, it moves pigment around.
And I'm sure it's fun.
It's fun as all get out. It's very hot. The smell in here is amazing. I'm probably going to put 2 layers of wax. I don't know if you can see it, but some of the wax is fusing deep into this paper. That's one of the things I love about working with this paper
And
Keeps it.
that's the watercolor paper that you're using?
This is actually Arsh's cover, which is made for printmaking.
Okay, so it's not the oil paint paper.
I've used the oil paper before too. I
Okay.
bought a roll of that.
Yeah, yeah.
Some pieces in the show are with the oil paper, but I actually kind of prefer cover. I like how cover eats the wax. It
Okay.
really goes in there nice. And the colors shine. And what's also cool is there were marks on here I weren't aware of from my hand,
Mm.
just from the air, just some of the mess that got on there. And it doesn't pop until you put the wax on. You got to appreciate that.
And so this is the cold press paper, so it has a texture on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A bit of texture. And I've done this with mulberry paper, really thin but strong mulberry paper. There's some pieces in the gallery that have that too, and that's alarming because the paper disappears when it gets wet with the wax. The paper
Yeah,
goes away.
yeah.
You lose it; it becomes completely transparent.
There,
But the
there's
marks,
beauty in that. Yeah.
yeah, the marks are floating. It's really wonderful. Okay, so I've got a layer of wax on here. I'm going to put another layer on. Oh, this one just kind of floats on top. Oh, come on. I wish I could eat it. What it would taste like. I think it would taste really good. Kind of like blue candy. Maybe I should change my name to Blue Candy. A good DJ name for me?
I had some I dabbled with Encaustic a little bit because it's a medium that I find so interesting. And whenever I was in kind of there with the wax melting, it kind of reminds me of hot toast and honey on it.
Yes. Okay, that's better than Blue Candy. Very well.
Which
Yes.
was,
Got a
yeah.
honey bomb.
I have this childhood memory of that as my favorite breakfast.
That's wonderful. What I really miss are the big corn muffins in a New York City diner. With butter and jelly. Oh, civilization. There's a big brush hair in there. Too big for me. Too big even for me. Okay. There's a lot of frankincense and myrrh piling up at the top, and I dig it. Sandy.
And then
All right.
once you do this, do you brush it down, or is there like a polishing process for
If
the?
I want to polish it, which I tend to always do want to polish it when it comes to this paper,
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of works with cold wax, which is a slightly different medium, and
Yes.
I'm not polishing those. We'll do a cold wax demo some other day. It's really fun. But I will shine this. And so the wax right now, as you can see, is hardening, coming to room temp. It happens really quickly. It's coming to room temp. It's thicker in places than in other places, which I could move away or keep there, but I'm kind of digging it. It looks kind of skeletal and science fiction book cover somehow. There's a terrifying moment when it's coming to room temp that it gets really opaque for a minute and starts doing a lot of mark making on its own, like down there. That's going to go away in a second, for the most part. And so then I shine it.
Temperature do you heat the wax to? Is that
180 degrees, and that seems to melt it and get it moving the way I want to. And that's what I read on the internet, and that's what seems to work. And 180 also seems to, I put a lot of essential oils in there at times. And 180 seems to be okay with the essential oils too. I have this whole box.
Okay, so you have aromatherapy happening as well, and yeah.
Yeah, I think smell is an important part of life.
Oh, yeah, yes. I use clove oil, so yeah.
Yeah, you understand.
Yeah.
Box smell. Now it smells really good in here, Minnie. Oh my goodness. Oh, but unfortunately, like all the work in the show is in frames, so you can't smell it.
You can't smell it, yeah.
But I can smell it.
You could have little maybe diffusers in the gallery.
That's not a bad idea, actually.
Yeah.
There's smell is part of the process. So now it's basically coming to room temp everywhere. It's really a bumpy piece. I think I would have blown it out more if I wasn't demoing. I don't know if you can tell, it's getting shinier.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, so see that?
Yeah, and there's suddenly all these textures that are jumping out that were not visible before.
Totally. This is a really deep piece, very textural. And then the best part, my favorite part of any
Yes, it's ripping the edges, the tape off.
paper off, right? Usually I'll wash my
But-
hands
And
first.
it's a bit of drama, right? When you take it off.
Yeah, because I've ripped the paper before. And when I put the tape on, I actually do this on my clothes first, so the tape's not so
Sticky. Yeah.
sticky. Yeah, because it will eat the paper. But what it does is it does take off sort of the epithelium of the paper, the topmost layer, and it makes the paper really soft. Sometimes the wax leaks under the tape and it looks really cool. So much tape in my life. Tape and artist soap. Oh, there's some spillage. You see that?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Almost there. So I like to wash my hands first. I'm getting blue on the virgin edge. There we go.
Oh, that looks fantastic.
Thank you. And that's really how long it takes. I work really fast. I could, on one night, I could do one large piece or 2 or 3 smaller pieces. They're just improvisational jams. Sometimes I'm working out a process that needs a new template, a new stencil. So that will take a little more time. Or now I'm experimenting with new elements of the alphabet, which is really exciting. If you go to my Instagram, you'll see some pieces that have new alphabetic elements, and hopefully you can recognize them as that now, which is kind of cool. If you're following my work, you can see as I develop new to the language.
It's just it is just put the entire show into a different context for me now.
Oh, good.
The process has just it's so interesting too. Yeah.
And I don't like to sign the front because there's enough going on the front, frankly. So there we go.
That's fantastic.
There it is, Minnie. Going once.
And so will you have this piece available at the gallery for us to look at this week?
Yeah, I'm bringing it to the gallery today. I'm going to go there today, as a matter of fact.
So
yeah, it'll be there. And then one I made the other day. So here's the one I made for the live demo.
Yeah.
Hi. And then here's the one I just made now.
Oh yes. Okay. Yeah. They actually they look fantastic next to each other.
A little diptych would be nice.
Yeah.
It would be nice. Good idea. You're always good with that. So that's how it works.
Oh, this was so fascinating to watch, Corey.
Yeah, thank you for coming, as it were.
It would be great fun to come in person into your studio sometime. And
yeah, that would be really cool. It's messy in here though, but you'll be fine.
So that's okay.
Can handle it. Yeah, and I'd like to do classes of some kind too, and kind of teach people this method and the alphabet making and the stencils and the wax. I think there's a real.
I think it would be very cathartic, and it's almost like I get a sense of it being deeply therapeutic without being invasive, you know.
Exactly. It's true.
Yeah.
Very cathartic, and you're forced to be in the moment, so it forces some mindfulness, but it's also mind wandering at the same time. So yeah, it's just a really great state of consciousness to be in.
It's the beauty of it is that it's really just going with a person's innate creative ability, which all human beings have. I mean, mark making is so innate in all of us. It's not something that you need to be artist trained, or you know, it's really just tapping into what makes us human.
Right. It's there. I think it's just a matter of permission.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I look forward to you starting your classes, Corey. Good luck with that.
Yeah,
good luck with the rest of your show.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks.
So do drop in. Corey shows up till the 2nd, as I mentioned earlier. And Corey's in this weekend. So
all right.
come and
I wash my hands and go right now.
Yep. Okay. See you. Right. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.